Hello and welcome back to another episode of Your Drone Questions Answered. I'm John Dickow with the Drone Launch Academy, here to find the answers to your drone questions. And today's a really good question. It's a business question. What are some marketing tips for drone business owners? How do you get your business out there? How do you get your people to know about your business? Today, I have with me Nathan Sheets. He's the founder of the Drone Ranger. Nathan, thanks for being with me today.
Yeah, John, thanks for having me. Happy to be here.
Before we dive into this question about marketing, tell me a little bit about the Drone Ranger, what kind of services you offer, how long you've been around.
The Drone Ranger was founded in summer 2021, our drone service provider. So we do construction work, we do telecom work, we do videography work for documentaries and mid-sized film crews, about probably 10 to 20 crew size, nothing bigger than that. We're based here in the bluegrass state of Kentucky, near Louisville, Kentucky. We're ready to answer some marketing questions and excited to be here. So thanks.
Awesome. And I love the name. And we were talking about this a little bit before we started our recording, and you were telling me a little bit about the name and how your first drone was actually named Hi Ho Silver.
It was, yep.
The
And
Drone
my
Ranger.
wife always gets the credit for coming up with the name. We had sticky notes of all kinds of different names, probably 50 or 60 of them up on the wall. Brainstorming, do we like that one? Do we like this one? And she came up with that. Yeah. And then we adopted the Lone Ranger vibes, naming the drone in the app. Yeah, Silver. So that was fun.
I love it. And I love it how you kind of worked with your wife on developing some of those concepts. What type of drone was Silver?
So Silver is probably my favorite drone I've had sitting on the wall up there. That's what I was looking at. DJI Air 2S. So at the time when we started, the Air 2S was fairly new. I was torn between that and a DJI Mini. If you know what the Mini is, it's kind of a step down, probably a couple $100 cheaper. And at the time, that was a big deal. I ended up going with the Air 2S because I knew it was a drone that I could grow into. At the time, we were still marketing our services. We were still kind of testing the waters, and we would have outgrown the Mini like that. So the Air 2S had and still has some, capabilities that the Mini doesn't. It has the SDK where you can do some flight planning, all kinds of different things that the Mini didn't. It's funny that you asked that, John, just because there was a huge decision with what drone we were going to go with, and it ended up being the right decision. So I've flown a couple hundred hours on that thing and love it. Love it.
Nice. Well, that's actually pretty good to know for some of our audience who are just starting off too, that a good beginner and get the job done.
100%.
So let's dive into marketing tips. I feel like on this podcast, we talk a lot about, when we're talking about business, we're always talking about what are you going to charge your clients? We don't always talk about how do we find our clients? How do clients find us? Tell me a little bit about what you've been doing over at the Drone Ranger in terms of marketing and what you found to be successful.
Yeah. So I'll answer that here after I give a disclaimer that it totally is different for everybody, right? I'll give some tips and some steps that I think are fairly universal. And then I'll talk about some stuff that has worked for me and some stuff that hasn't worked for me, because that can be just as valuable. But everybody's market is different. And like you said, I watched this show, there's a lot of pricing questions and different questions, and it really depends on a lot of different things, right? So you really have to work and find what works for you. Like you said, I see this question a lot, and I'm thankful I get to be somebody who can help shed some light on this. So yeah, there isn't a one size fits all, and all businesses are different with different strengths and weaknesses. But the way that I kind of organized initially my marketing offline, one category was called offline marketing and one is online marketing, right? And any marketing, professional or anybody that can kind of understand and learn their way through something can probably take a guess at what that is, right? Online marketing, we know it's on the web. You got your website, your portfolio, things like that. And offline marketing is a little bit less common and a little bit less talked about, but it can be just as potent and just as helpful. So we started in kind of hitting both of those, at the same time. In your offline marketing, you're talking business cards, flyers, and pamphlet, maybe in-person networking event. And even though those sound super general and, just part of growing a business, those can be incredibly valuable to gaining some traction when you're early in your business. When you're face to face with somebody, with a real estate agent, or maybe it's a construction manager or something like that, that can be incredibly valuable when they make a decision about whether or not to go with you. So if they have your business card, they've talked to you, they've shaken your hand, in their brain, it's a much easier yes. And it's not even a sell, it's a relationship, right? So then you go to your online, you got your website, you build your online portfolio, maybe some emails specifically reaching out to specific clients that you've seen, in your area, maybe personal connections that you've had. Some of the stuff that I started with was I would go to networking events, local networking events, whether that's a real estate event or just a general networking event, and would just talk to people, hand out business cards and just talk and hear their story. And that's part of being an entrepreneur as well. and something that I enjoy. But I also, if I was driving by a construction site and I saw some guys, doing some work over there, I would actually turn the car around and go back and say, "Hey, what's up? Do you guys fly drones over here? Do you need some data collection?" Things like that. Those don't always yield results, and that can be very intimidating to stop at a construction site and ask somebody that you don't know, "Hey, what's up? Can I talk to you about what I do?" But that can really go a long way in gaining some early traction. And then your online stuff, building your website, like I said. I would also think about something I did initially was paying a professional to, boost the search engine optimization or SEO for your website. That makes
Yeah.
your website incredibly easy to find. And if you learn your way through that, I did somewhat. And with AI now and a lot of website builders, it's a little bit easier. But I would recommend, at least for a short term, setting aside a budget where you can pay a professional to do that, because that can really make a huge difference. We were page 3 or 4 on Google, and probably 6 months later, after putting a decent amount of money behind this, we're, number 2 or 3 in our area for drone service. So that's huge. The SEO is
Yeah.
huge.
Awesome. And I think you're presenting this in a pretty smart way, going offline and online, because when I think about marketing, and I'll be honest, I worked in the marketing world, it's everyone thinks online, and your mind immediately goes to your website, to your email, to your social media channels, and how you can blast out and reach people, which obviously it works and it's a necessary tool. But the offline element, the human element, stopping and starting conversation, that almost seems like that's the harder element, like part of it. It's almost like over time it's kind of flipped and the online stuff became easier and the in-person stuff became a little tougher.
For sure.
But
It kind of depends on how, you would say it's harder, just because, like, my wife is very social. She loves talking to people. She would probably rather go to half a dozen meetings and talk to people and hear some stories before she'd write a blurb and send a little email. So it totally depends. And, you want to utilize, if you have somebody in your life or something like that who's good at things that you're not, you want to feel free to utilize that, obviously in the bounds of your own relationship. But everything is moved to online, but that doesn't mean that the offline stuff isn't helpful or beneficial. And a lot of times, from what I've seen, the best client that I've had have been a combination of both, right? Whether I meet them at something in person, shake their hand, say, "Hey, what's up?" or meet them for coffee. And then afterwards, send them the website, send them some work that we've done, and move to a more of an online thing. You kind of mesh those two together, and it creates a great relationship from the start, and can be something that's tackable and not this general marketing, call people, talk to people. But these ideas and these steps are hopefully helping some viewers think in their own life and in their own area about some specific steps that they can take to market their services.
absolutely. And the human element too. I mean, everyone's different. And I think there's still that older generation that isn't necessarily completely online. And I think would appreciate somebody literally driving by, stopping, saying hello, introducing themselves, and talking about what they do and how they can help. I think some of that can be accomplished online, but I think a lot of that can be lost. And the size of the business has got to matter there too, right? You're a small business and there's something trustworthy about that. And I think, depending on where you are geographically in the country, could be other small businesses out there looking for somebody like you, feeling a lot more comfortable. It's probably only a matter of time before you're calling a huge, whether it's a real estate company that's already baking drone services into their, like where you'll just get sent through a phone tree before actually reaching a human being. And so if that day isn't already here, it's coming soon, I'm sure.
For sure, yeah, and it definitely depends on the geographical, area that you are, like you said, and like we said at the start of the show. But there's definitely a human element that is becoming more and more. It's kind of over the other side of the curve. It's becoming more and more valuable and more sought after. You also mentioned stopping on the side of the road. I've stopped at construction sites. I've seen surveyors laying down ground control points and things like that. And I'll slow down and say, "Hey, what you guys doing? Do you ever use drones?" Like I said, that might be intimidating, but whoever I was stopping to talk to has never been upset at me stopping and having a little chat. Whether they're part of the marketing team, whether they're the decision maker, of the group. More often than not, they're out there doing their job and they're like, "Hey, call the office tomorrow. Here's this guy's number," something like that. They're never, ever, in the experiences that I've had, they've never been upset or anything like that. I wouldn't worry too much about stepping on the property or things like that. If you've ever talked to a construction site foreman or project manager, they're usually pretty chill. Or usually they're open to hearing a pitch or somebody's idea. Whether or not that works out, they might just say, "Hey, good idea." Actually, there was a local project, real quick story. They were building a big old warehouse, and I stopped and said, "Hey, what's going on? I do drone services. I live literally 2 miles down the road. Have you guys thought about that?" And they said, "Oh man, we wish you were here last week. We already made a decision last week to go with this other company. So you missed it by like a week." And this was, a year and a half project. That's just how that goes, right? But what I did was I got the name of the company that they went with, got in touch with them, great company. And then I also got a contact with the construction agency and said, "Hey, great for this project, you're set. Let me know if you need anything else. Let me know if you've got anything else in the area. We travel, all that stuff. There's win-wins regardless of if you just missed the decision or if you're still in the running or whatever, right? There's definitely ways you can work any answer to be a success or a benefit and move your business forward.
Awesome. I wanted to touch on just the online before we wrap up, knowing that that's something a lot of people are familiar with. A lot of people think about when they think about marketing. How do you put your work out there? How do you display your work? And on your website, I mean, it's a beautiful website on the Drone Ranger where you've got a really nice page with your portfolio on it, really sweet shots, video. And do you have any tips in terms of how somebody who may not be a web artist on how to just quickly get a website together, where they can go, any templates they could find?
Sure. So I would say that the website is definitely the core of your online marketing. And a lot of times it's the core of your business, right? I mean, it's just the easiest, fastest, and cheapest way for people to get to know about you. And for somebody that isn't into that and maybe wouldn't be able to learn it as fast, obviously you can always pay somebody to do it. And a lot of times that's the right answer. It's a professional. You're not figuring it out. The first website I built, almost 4 years ago, took me 3 weeks to build. That just took forever. And I learned a ton, but it just took forever. And I would never be able to spend that time on the website today. I haven't personally used any of these, but I know that there's a lot of AI website builders. So you can pay for a subscription or pay for access. I'm not sure exactly how it works, but essentially you would put in some text, tell it what you do. We're a drone service business. We want to get into these markets. We're based here. This is who we are, your backstory, and it'll, within an hour, generate a services page, a portfolio page, a contact us page, all these different things. And then you can just go in and populate it with your content, your text. That you can also use ChatGPT or another text generator to help you write things out. If you give it the ideas, it'll write out a little blurb for you to put on there. So this website I've got up now, I hand wrote all that stuff and then, kind of refined it through the years. But those AI builders can make that process a lot easier. So for somebody that isn't necessarily super tech savvy or, isn't a website to do it, or look at some of these AI generators because tech is getting better and better, making it easier and easier to make some of this stuff happen. So that's what I would say.
Absolutely. It might be a little repetitious to the website, but social media, you're very active on social media. So you're scrolling through your Facebook page, you've got videos, examples of recent work you've done for other clients, and it really looks nice. And I think one thing you do really well is you maintain that presence. And so you don't necessarily have to post every day, but there is recent work on your Facebook page, which I'm sure something is what clients are looking for. So
Yeah, yeah.
really,
Thanks, John. I appreciate it. Yeah, all that is kind of building our brand, right? And my brand, and to have an active and a currently active social media page just tells a lot, I think, to somebody who's a potential client. But we're also talking, other professionals, other peers, because work can come from referrals just as easy as it can come, sometimes easier, from client, other professionals in the space. I want them to see that I'm active, that I care about this, that I'm continuing to do work, and I have thoughts and opinions on things, and would love to dialogue and chat and all those things. And so all that kind of creates our online presence. When a client enters that space, they see all this stuff. They see this content. That's the goal, right? And some of the content could be more geared toward a specific client base or a specific market or vertical, than others. But for the most part, from my perspective and from our social media, we've kind of stuck to a more general approach of showing some past work that we've done. Like you said, here's some videos, trying an overall generalized approach.
absolutely. Well, Nathan, I really appreciate you coming on. I feel like we're going to have to do another marketing episode. We're
Okay.
just scratching the surface. I would encourage our audience who's watching, who's listening, to check out thedronerangerky.com, and you'll get a really good idea of what a good portfolio looks like, what a good website looks like. And from there, you can actually check out some of the social media channels too. Really great template, really great thing to learn off just by scrolling through. So Nathan, we'll get you back on talking about this topic, but this is Nathan Sheets. He's the founder of the Drone Ranger. Thank you again for coming.
Yeah, John, thanks for having me. See you.
And hey, if you got a drone question, please send it our way. You can go on to ydqa.io, type it in there, or if you're part of the Drone Launch Connect community, it's a great community. Everyone's sharing their experiences, their wins, and their losses there. Type it in there. If somebody on the platform doesn't answer it before I get to it, I will answer it here on the podcast. Until then, we'll see you in the sky.